5 minutes of it telling me that I wasn't allowed to.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah, like I don't know what John did. Hocus pocused it, and then all of a sudden it was working. And it was
John
like,
was
okay,
naughty. Broke the live
yeah,
stream.
Sean was not. Yeah. But anyway, welcome everybody. Tuesday night with Ben Stowe. And I'm excited. I am very excited because I get to I get to hang out with him. And tonight is Ben Stowe questions. And so here's what I'm going to ask from a lot of you. I've got my questions. I've got 13 good ones. I told him 12. I lied. I got 13. And only one came from ChatGPT, but the rest of them, I think are actually good. And we'll see. But if you've got a question that you want to throw out to Ben and it ends up being better than my question to Ben, then I'll scrap
Please
one of mine.
save me. Send good questions.
Hey now. Hey
I'm
now.
afraid of Dan.
So the first one, let's get the first one out of the way. The chat GBT one. The question is, Ben, for adult diapers, what do you recommend?
What now?
For adult diapers, what do you recommend?
It depends.
Exactly. There we go.
I had to like, wait, did I hear that question correctly?
I'm sorry. That was not a chat GBT. That was a dad joke in the waiting.
I was gonna say, there's no way you can blame that on ChatGPT. I'm getting older. There's a lot of gray in this beard, which is gonna have to get shaved off here pretty quick because it's now 80 in Minnesota and it's too hot. I just can't do it. So those of you who can have facial hair year round, good for you. I can't. But I'm happy to say that despite the gray in my beard, I really don't know any brands of adult diapers. I'm not up on that yet.
Well, I didn't expect you to, but of course, if there's an answer that it comes from Ben, it usually depends. And so I was like, you know what? Let's just set it up and run with it.
Well, bravo, sir. Okay, listen, viewers, honest to Pete here, like save me. We're gonna have an hour of this if you don't put in some questions.
Oh my goodness. Oh my
Chat
goodness. But
GPT my rear end. Like I told you, I grew up in farm country. I know what BS smells like. So, when the bull poops, I know what that smells like. So,
oh my goodness. But no, I've missed you, sir. I missed you, and I'm glad that John's still unfortunately feeling under the weather. So, but I'm very thankful that I had the opportunity to fill in for him, and so hopefully some of these questions will be a little bit better than the last one.
they can't get worse.
They can't get worse. You are right. You are well. You haven't heard them all yet.
Oh boy. Viewers,
But no.
save me.
Okay, so let's throw one up for you. I think this is going to be a relatively an easy one to answer. Of course, there's going to be a long Ben Stowe answer, but it's an easy one
Are you kidding me? I'm going to drag it out for 58 minutes so there aren't any more
there
questions.
How can I add a sub to my Evolve 50 system?
Well,
I'm going to let me phrase that. How can I add an additional sub to my
Step
Evolve
1,
50
go to
system?
nlfxpro.com. Step 2, select a sub and add to cart. I would a couple of the subs that I like for pairing with the Evolve are the ELX 212 SP, which is another 12-inch powered sub, very similar to what's in the Evolve. And a lot of people really like the EKX 15 SP. So, moving up to a 15 gives you a little bit, deeper punch, and it's still a nice compact, but slightly more powerful sub. So basically at that point, there's a couple different ways that you could add it. You could put that sub on a separate send, like an aux send, and then have control of it, or you could simply daisy chain through, and it doesn't matter which one you go to first. You can plug into the sub first, or you can plug into the Evolve first, because the pass-throughs on those are full bandwidth either way.
So what would be the advantage? Because you mentioned the 15 giving that deeper punch, and so it gives you kind of a different different vibe to it, we'll say, different full sound. What would be one of the advantages to adding an additional 12?
Well, you're just going to get more low end, and if viewers, if you haven't seen the recent subwoofer show John and I did, that's a pretty good. Well, I don't know if it's a good watch. I mean, but I did math in it. I'm sorry, but other than that, we covered a lot of stuff on subwoofers, and I think you'll see some of those benefits, like having 6 dB from pairing another active sub, the acoustic advantages of coupling. it's going to be it's going to make a difference for sure. The keys,
So
though, as we cover in that show, is placement, and do watch that show. We did some things where we moved some things around, and had some acoustic models showing what would happen, and so you're going to want to probably put that immediately adjacent to one of your evolves.
there we go. That was the question I was about to ask. What, where would you ideally place this? And so first off, check out the recording so that you can get like the full picture and the full understanding
Yeah,
there. But
besides
yeah,
John needs views. I know John's under the weather right now, and nothing cheers John up more than views. So, I don't get paid by the click or anything, but John obviously does a lot for our industry, and it does help him. So, go watch the show.
absolutely,
Besides, I slaved
absolutely.
all day over a hot spreadsheet to make that for you. So, like
You did.
maybe for
You're
15
so
minutes, but
nice of
still, it
you.
was a lot of work for 15 minutes. So,
All right. I was trying to find the link. John's really good at finding the links, and I was gonna drop it into the chat and like I'm seeing all the 8,000 other videos that we've done.
I
So
think if you just go on
um
YouTube and you search Ben Stowe subwoofer, you'll probably
yeah,
find it. Feel free to message me if you can't find it. I'll find the link and send it to you. Again, I want to be sensitive to John not feeling good, and Dan, who I absolutely enjoy every time doing a show with you, Dan. It's always a pleasure. But obviously Dan's stepping in here for John, and we don't want to make Dan work any harder than necessary. Although one more diaper question, and that's going to change. So.
but you know what? You were good enough. You told me the search and I found it, dropped it in the chat, and so now we're good. So there we go. The link is now there for everybody.
Boom.
So
Right on.
so speaking of subs, right? Like that was the hot topic. I know that show got a lot of traction because everybody's, likes this idea of adding bass to whatever they might have.
Sure.
So kind of along that same line, right? If I'm adding two or more matching subs to my system, I know that I can get more bass sound, and of course the ideally is coupling and yada yada yada. Okay. Does the same thing work, however, if I had two more matching pops?
To put it in the simplest of terms, low frequency summation is easy, high frequency summation is hard. And the reason, which I don't know if we covered this in that show or not, but anyway, the reason is wavelength, and frequency dictates wavelength. Basically, we can calculate wavelength knowing the frequency and the speed of sound. And for today's purposes, we'll just say it's 1130 feet per second. I like to say 1128, but close enough, right? So when we talk like 100 hertz, the crossover point for most subs in the DJ realm here, we're talking about 11.3 foot wavelength. So if we go up a decade, now we're talking about 1 kilohertz, and we move the decimal point, right? So 1.13 feet. And if we go up another decade, we're now talking about 10 kilohertz. Now that wavelength is like an inch. So the summation things don't work as well. And the punchline of this, the short answer is you don't want to stick two tops side by side and overlap those high frequency patterns, because you're going to start creating some phasing and some comb filtering, power alleys and nulls. And if you're going to put tops together, toe them out away from each other so that the high frequency horns are not overlapping. You can add subs for more output, but you would add more tops for coverage.
Okay. So based upon the kind of the way I know like oh my gosh, it was probably maybe 8, 10 years ago now, maybe even longer. It seemed like the hot thing people were seeing a lot was these goalpost top holders, we'll say.
Sure. Yep.
And it seemed like that was like the hot thing for a while, and then they kind of went away. And I'm assuming it's probably because exactly what you said, like you're not getting that added sound from just having two horns pointed straight ahead.
Let me see if let's see if we can pull up the whiteboard quick here. Let's just sketch this real quick. Let's see. So let's do the goalpost thing, and we're gonna have, okay, I guess it's gonna be green. Well, whatever. Um, let's say we've got two of these speakers here, and they're just like this. And I don't know how I can illustrate this. I'm just gonna freehand it, I guess. So you can see this okay on the screen, Dan?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So here's my coverage patterns coming out of these things. And you can see I haven't really gained a ton in terms of additional coverage area, but I've
Mm-hmm.
got this overlap area here in the middle where I've got all kinds of potential problems with, phasing and other nasty things. And it's just going to sound a little weird in here, as opposed to out here and here. Uh, and so you might say, well, but it's going to be louder and this and that. Not really. I mean, it's not going to be as advantageous as we want. So let's see if we can do this. I've never tried this with never tried this with Zoom before, so it's a great adventure for all of us. I don't like how this is
All right, you're
working.
doing good so far.
Man, I'll tell you what, I feel like I just need to freehand this. Uh, this is not going well. All right, let's do this. And we'll make our speakers green again, just in keeping with consistency. So here's my speaker, and I've towed it out this way. In our marketing team, one of our graphic illustrators has one of those digital pad things on his desk, and I'm starting to see why. This is really hard to draw. So
Oh yeah, especially if you're doing it with a mouse. Like, yeah, you either need that or you need one of these, Ben. So you
yeah,
can draw
something.
it
I'm
on the
trying to do it with a
screen.
mouse.
Yeah.
So by towing this speaker out, we can see that my overlap area is way less now, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But what I have also accomplished though, and let's switch to a new color for this. How about a nice pretty blue? Is I've increased my arc of coverage. And ideally, this angle here
Mm-hmm.
would be roughly equivalent to the horn angles. So if these are 90-degree horns, this should be 90 degrees. Or the closer you get to that, the less of the overlap. You're still gonna have a little bit of overlap, but it's not going to be so awful and dramatic. And I think you'll hear that difference. I think probably the best thing is to just try it. Go experiment with this, and you'll hear the difference as you walk in front. You'll hear that phasing. Particularly, a really good way to hear this is just play some pink noise. So you can certainly hear it with music too, but it's really pronounced with pink noise, and you'll definitely hear it at the higher frequencies, and that's because of those shorter wavelengths.
Okay. All right. In summation here, right? We got subs, coupling, good. We get that summation thing. Top, you don't want to put them together like that. You want to tow them out if you're insisting on do that because you're going to get better coverage, but you're not going to get that loudness factor that you're thinking. But that spread in the coverage really could be key and something that you need to have if you're in a you're in a long room that's got a short throw. You need to get the
Correct.
coverage out to the sides a little bit better.
Yep.
All
Point the
right.
loud part at the people.
Yeah, there we go. There we go. All right. So let's assume for a second that I want to improve my wireless mic range without getting into the big paddles because for whatever reason, maybe I'm, self-conscious about my paddle size. What could I
Okay.
add to my Sennheiser G4 system to get more range?
Well, uh, I feel like I've walked right into your trap with the paddle reference here, but bigger is better. So you could add and I believe it or not, I actually have one on my desk here. Anybody surprised? No. Okay. All
No,
right.
not at all.
You could move into a half wave antenna, which is a longer antenna. And I did a video on the NLFX YouTube where we took the factory quarter wave antennas, then we switched to half waves, and then we switched to paddles, and we measured at which point it would drop out. And it was a fairly pronounced difference. You could really see that benefit. Um, Assuming you don't want to change anything with your antennas at all, a couple things that would be really key to do would be antenna placement. Get the antennas up high, try to maintain good clear line of sight. Now, if you're not switching antennas and you're sticking with your factory quarter waves, they still need to be attached to your wireless system. You can't remotely mount a quarter wave. They're a monopole. You need to go with a half wave, which is a dipole, to do that. So we're back to, switching antennas. Or you could move the whole mic system up. Some other things you should always be doing is making sure you're checking for clear frequencies in the area, the clearest frequencies, good RF management, just giving your system a chance to succeed. Those things will dramatically improve your range.
So if I only had an option of having either my receiver up high or my transmitter up high, is there one that's better than another?
I suppose if I think about this long enough, I could probably come to a thought on that. But I'll just say that ultimately, when we say line of sight, we're talking about from antenna to antenna. So any obstruction between the antennas is between the antennas, regardless of which way it is. Um, I think that it's easier often to control the height of the receiving antenna than the transmit antenna because the transmit antenna, I also have a wireless on my desk. Anybody surprised? No, okay, we covered that. All right, yeah. It's like, this is like, my office is like, Pee-wee's Playhouse for nerds, like for AV nerds, so I don't have the fancy, breakfast making machine he had in the movie, but I'm working on it. Anyway, so, here is my transmit antenna. And if I'm using this mic like this, it's going to be up nice and high. If this is a body pack, that's going to get harder. You can certainly try to get body packs up higher. You could try to put them into, jacket pockets, inside suit jackets or on bra straps on females, but that sometimes we don't have we don't get the say in that. So I don't know if it's a matter of which you would pick because it would make more of an impact as opposed to which you have control over.
Okay. Sean in the chat just threw out a question, and I'm going to read it word for
Thank you,
word, and
Sean. I
maybe it'll
appreciate
make more sense to
I
you.
haven't even heard your question yet, and thank you, Sean, for saving me a little bit here. So.
How about remoting antennas, and is it worth it?
Yeah, so great question. I'll just follow that up with kind of going back to the half waves or the LPAs, which is a log periodic array or log periodic antenna. Any of those types of antennas that are not monopoles, you can mount them remotely, and that's often advantageous. Many times, if I'm doing corporate AV, that sort of thing, my wireless receivers might be underneath the table. They might be, sometimes I'll have stacks of racks of wireless receivers and then, antennas that are combined and going out to, a pair of LPAs or something. So remotely mounting antennas can be really advantageous because then you can get the ideal line of sight, the best possible position for the antenna without any regard to where all the mics and racks go.
Okay.
Only thing,
And
sorry, go ahead. Well, I was going to say the only thing I would add to that though is cable length. Some people say, what if I ran a 100-foot antenna cable? I'm like, well, you're kind of defeating the purpose of having a wireless mic, and you probably have significant loss in that cable. So, let's keep those cables reasonable. If we can't get decent line of sight within 25 feet or so, we might have to rethink life a little bit. We can make you longer cables, but we have to look at thicker, more expensive cables to prevent loss, and all kinds of fun things go into that.
And if we've got the half waves, ideally they're supposed to be 45s, right? 90s. What are we?
Yeah, typically we go 90 degrees from each other, which is typically 45 degrees from the horizon. But the reason we do that is due to the polarization of a radio wave and how that presents itself. Ultimately, what we're most worried about here with having two antennas is giving our receiver two paths to receive that transmitting signal from. So if we have multipath null over here or interference or something over here, we probably don't have it over here. And just like in audio, we talked about wavelength, radio waves have wavelength as well, also dictated by frequency and speed of light. So, we take a UHF wavelength and, figure out what that distance is and, blah, blah, blah. Chances are we're not gonna have that problem in two places, chances are, which is why we have two antennas in diversity systems. However, it's important to note, I think, how antennas work. Basically, I'm going to use a very non-technical term here. They vibrate with the, radio wave hits them and makes them vibrate and generates an electrical signal, which goes into the mic. It's sort of a very simplified way of thinking about it. But so if my transmit antenna is oriented this way, I want my receive antenna to be oriented the same way. That will give you the maximum amount of reception because these radiate in effectively a donut-shaped pattern. So if one antenna is like this and one is like this, it's actually going to be very bad. That's the worst reception. So by the way, a little takeaway here. If you have your mics in a rack and the antennas are still on them and you have the antennas facing sideways in the back of the rack, you are doing everything possible to make your mics fail. You might as well just dump them in the river and see if they still work then,
And one of these times, I think I got to get you on maybe on a Zoom or whatever, and we got to figure out my antenna issue.
Are we not on a Zoom right now?
Well, but I don't have my equipment ready. My equipment's
right,
out in my storage area. But so mine had this horrendous thing. So I've got the half waves. They're on the BNC connectors, and they just like to like flop
Mm.
down. Like and we've tried putting the little rubber washer on,
Still didn't do it, huh?
and it still didn't do it. Still didn't quite fix it. So
Hmm.
I don't know what I'm doing wrong. I don't know. There's something there.
I
There's
don't know.
something there that's an issue.
It's the problem with a floppy antenna. This one's pretty rigid, so I don't know.
No, that's not the way it flops. It
Well,
spins on me. So
oh,
so
oh, so the whole, okay, I was gonna say, I got you.
yeah. So if you're holding the end and hold that up,
Uh-huh.
and then the thing
It
will
goes like
just
this.
yeah.
It's not floppy, it's droopy.
Yes, there we go.
Our show just got upgraded to R rating. Uh, John is never turning this over to us again.
No, no. But you know what? We might get some OnlyFans out of it. So maybe
I'd
we'll
probably make way more money. I probably would not make any more money, honestly. Like nobody's gonna go to my OnlyFans, but you know. So yeah, we'll talk about it. I think, I would suggest the rubber O-rings. That would be one of the things I would suggest. But I think we could look at some other alternatives, and that's an interesting quandary to tackle. So
yeah. Yeah. All right. So that's something you and I got to figure out at some point. So, all right. So let's shift gears, right? We've talked about subs. We've talked about some microphones. Obviously, we know that you guys have like the best gaff tape out there.
thank you.
But what is the best way to secure cords on carpet? Because gaff tape doesn't always stick to carpeting in venues quite the same as a hardwood floor.
Well, of course it doesn't, because it's just look at the surface type, and you look at
Mm-mm.
what we're relying on here is cohesion, so
Mhm.
obviously a carpet doesn't present the same type of surface. I guess there are a couple different things we could talk about. Gaff tape still generally works well on carpet. I use it all the time. Now, if you've got some like really awesome retro 70s shag carpet, I mean, more power to you. I don't know. I've seen other people use wide Velcro strips and just try to attach it down to the carpet. Typically, doesn't damage the carpet too much, but it is effectively putting a hook in there that's going to try to pull those fibers out, so some places will say no. I don't think it damages it much, but uh, otherwise you can get like cord covers, cable ramps, guard dogs, power ramps, those sorts of things. But generally, I don't have a problem using gaff tape. And I'm not saying that because we make gaff tape, but I use gaff tape. I mean, I use it all the time.
Mhm. So I guess the question just comes down to if you find that yourself in that situation, try the gaff tape first, obviously. But if you find that there is a difficult piece, right, difficult section or place that you play that just for whatever reason, like the 70s shag carpeting, whatever, then you might have to look into some of those. Not as I will say, maybe even not as hidden type of things. I think that's why some people are like they don't want to go to those. They work great, the cord covers and that, but they're
Hmm.
not exactly hideable.
I'll tell you the thing that stumps me about those cable ramps. We use them all the time, and we have the industrial ones that have 5 channels because our feeders are 5 wires, whatever, and we have some smaller ones that are 2 channels. But they're brightly colored. We often have them lit. It doesn't matter. We could put a giant flashing sign. We'll have security guards stand by them. People will look right at the ramp and then trip on it anyway. And it just baffles me every time. But for what we're doing, gaff tape isn't an option. I mean, for when we're using those, because we're talking about cables that are maybe that big around, so you're not gaffing that. It's more of a trip hazard than the ramp at that point. And it presents more of a problem to guests in wheelchairs and things. And obviously, we want to be sensitive to that. So, ramps are the only way to go for some scenarios. But others, I use gaff tape all the time. When if I've got a mic cable or a video cable or something small, I just need to, I'm just going to gaff it, and be done with it.
Yeah, the kicking thing, I just had this past weekend, not with my cord, but with my bright up light. The staff could not keep from kicking it 4 times. Finally, the owner of the venue saw it happen and she just moved it. And I was like, and then there was like a wall that wasn't lit, but I was like, you know what? They kept kicking it. Heck with it.
There,
I'm
there
not
are
gonna do it.
times that, I mean, my faith in humanity is so tested. Um, there are just times, when I guess I love being a human, which is good because that's all I am, right? But and I love all my fellow humans, but there are just times when we are completely doomed as a species, and that's one of them.
Um, Okay, so in the chat, somebody says we sometimes come across hard surfaces that gaff tape won't work on.
Try our gaff
But then
tape.
turns around and says gaff tape works on grass, and they have photos to prove it.
Yeah, try ours and let me know. I mean, I would be curious why, what hard surface it doesn't work on and why. You know, I've yet to find a surface that it doesn't really work on. The exceptions being, you know, if you have anybody who puts wax or sawdust on like a dance floor, well, yeah, the gaff tape's going to stick to the wax or the sawdust and not the dance floor, you know. But yeah, I would be very interested for the feedback, you know, using our tape, and I would want some detailed information, what the surface material was like. If you have any information about the type of finish that's on the surface, what the temperature and humidity were. We have a really great formula. I think we make, I think maybe the best gaff tape out there. Certainly, you know, put it up against anybody's. And we're not looking to change the formula, but that feedback is always considered. You know, we always take those things in. We talk to customers. You know, we obviously live in Minnesota where we have wild temperature swings summer to winter. We have customers in, you know, Arizona and Nevada where it gets 120 in the summer, you know, and so we try to take all that into consideration and look at, could it be made better somehow, you know?
So there you go. Hawaii events. Make sure you reach out to Mr. Stowe and let him know those details, and he'll
My
take
guys
it.
from
He'll
Hawaii, I
take.
love those guys. So
Yeah.
is that yeah, I won't say their names and maybe they don't want me to. Anyway, love those guys. So yeah, I think they might be using our tape. So I'm not sure. But I would definitely like to get some feedback on if it is ours, why it's where it's not working, unless maybe there's just something out there it doesn't stick to. I don't know.
Yeah. All right. All right. So next up, is the shielding on DMX and audio XLR cables the same? Because some say really just the only difference between the two is the wire inside.
Typically, no, they're not the same, but that's not the biggest difference. And that's sort of a misnomer. I think a lot of people say, well, DMX cable's just better shielded. It it often has additional shielding because DMX is operating at a higher frequency than our audible audio frequencies. So we have RFI interference, radio frequency, as opposed to just EMF. Both typically have a braid, but DMX adds a foil shield. But we also have some other big differences in that because DMX is digital, we want a fairly low capacitance, but we want a higher characteristic impedance. So we'll have 120 ohm characteristic impedance and a lower capacitance, which would prevent those bits from getting kind of blurred. With audio, we will have a higher capacitance and a lower impedance. So really all the electrical characteristics top to bottom and soup to nuts are built in a way that gives you the best signal propagation for that type of signal. So audio cable is best for audio and DMX is best for DMX. It's not that one is better than the other, bar none, hands down, the end. No, it's that each is built specifically for a purpose and it's best for that. I might have,
That
I'm going to go
Go ahead.
offline for a quick second. Sorry, and I'll be right
Sure.
back. I might have some examples here I can go grab.
Okay. He even went off camera, not just not just gonna leave his desk. He's gonna turn off his camera and then hide. I get what he's doing over there. What he's doing. But no, I think it's really good. Some of you are dropping your stuff in the chat, and I think that's very cool. Hawaii events. I see the piece that you talked about, those types of floors. I'd be led to believe that's probably what it was. So Ben, while you're away, Hawaii events did come back and say that some stone floors that felt like it retains some moisture on it.
Okay. All right. A
So
stone
that might,
floor. That's good to know.
yeah. So, and
And
he,
there could be some cleaning materials or things that are used on those that became absorbed into the stone because it's porous. And then if it, you know, or maybe weeping that back out. I don't know. That would be really interesting to see. Like, I feel like that's going to be a pretty special use case.
yeah.
I'm looking through, I have all kinds of wire samples.
Oh, gee.
Oh, well, I have one less than I had a minute ago. All right. And I've got a sample here of our Platinum Series audio cable. And you can see that this really, really awesome, very tight braided shield. And then my signal carrying conductors, which are inside the wire, they are twisted together like this for common mode rejection. And of course, I've stripped this out and spread them apart. And then I also have an independent drain conductor here. So that is our Platinum Series audio cable. Let me see if I can just find our DMX cable in my pile of goodies here. And then I will show you. And there's another pile. Oh, I just lost another one. There's another pile I may have to go through too, so we may not get to it today. But anyway, suffice to say, each cable is built to carry a specific signal type, and it is built to carry that signal type better than any other. So, the digital signal is going to be carried better on the DMX, and the analog audio better on a good quality audio cable. Now, one reason that people often will buy audio cables and use them for DMX is they'll say, well, it's cheaper. No, actually, it's not. A good quality audio cable is going to cost more than a good quality DMX cable. So you're just probably getting a really cheap cable all around, which is not only not designed to transmit DMX, but it's not good at doing anything. So, all right. Well, I can only find this one. I don't have a DMX one in the pile here, and I can't find the one that left.
It's all good. Yeah. It's all good. And I think they kind of get that idea, right? And so that's really what it comes down to, is have the right tool for the right job, right?
100%.
That's what you got to do. That's what you're going to get the best results from. And might something else work? Sure. Right. Like I might be able to use my pocket knife to unscrew that flathead screw. But should I? Not according to what my thumb says. Right. So, that's the thing you got to keep in mind. Right. So,
yeah, everything's a hammer if you use it wrong enough.
That's very, very true.
Very true. Look at this. Oh, good. I'm just peeking in my pile here. I found a cheap mic cable. I'm not going to mention any names. Hopefully you can't see it on there, because I don't want this big corporation that sells these to get mad. So, but anyway, we can see that unlike the really awesome braided shield that our Platinum series has, this has a very loose, I'm going to make sure I cover up that name. This has a very loose spiral shield, which does not do a very good job of shielding. They do not have an independent drain conductor in there, so they have to take one of the shield wires and twist it into a conductor. And they've got kind of this sort of loose, haphazard lay for the cables inside, and they're a much, much smaller conductor, which you can see very prominently here. Let me try to isolate these so we can see the difference there. So you can see how much bigger.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, the Platinum series cable is so much bigger there. So anyway, this I think is 24 gauge and ours is 20 gauge. Anyway, it's just science. At the end of the day, it's honestly just science, So I'm told that I'm supposed to talk about the mystique and the mystère of what makes our cable so amazing, but there's nothing mysterious about it. It's purely physics.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, I've heard different people like comment, and you even mentioned, like, right, they get the cheap cable because it's the cheap cable and it does the job, and it does the job until it doesn't, right? Like, that's the thing that you got to keep in mind. And buy once, cry once, right? That's kind of the other adage from it. So,
Definitely.
there's a reason why the products cost what they do, and it's not because of anything other than you got better components in there. So, yeah.
Well, the crazy thing is too, if you look at the price of those two cables side by side, they're actually very similar. Just one company has a huge markup and one company does not. So, but it's like what my mom used to tell me when I was a kid, because I was sad because I was ugly. She said, "What's up?" I'm still ugly, but I'm not sad anymore. I don't care. But she said, "It's what's on the inside that counts," and it really is with cables too. If we look at the outside of these cables, here again, you can see that the NLFX cable is bigger, but marginally so. What we can see if we look at the end is that there's more guts in the NLFX cable. But at the end of the day, if I was a novice consumer and I was just buying these cables, I go, well, it's two black rubber cables. I don't know, and this one's expensive, so it's probably good. No, it's just overpriced, my opinion. But anyway, I think, a friend of mine who's a jeweler said, and I don't know anything about jewelry, right? I don't know if this is brass or gold. I mean, I don't have any idea. I trust the people I buy it from. And I think the point of that is, if you don't know what you're buying, you should know who you're buying it from.
I agree 100%. And Yeah, there's been some interesting comments in the chat. Those wires look a little not dead. Um, I don't know what they're meaning by that one. But
I
then
don't get it yet.
Hawaii says they've eliminated a lot of their issues once they converted all our cables over to NFX cables, DMX, and audio. Some issues were things like static problems with audio and connection problems with lighting. So there you have it.
Thank you, Hawaii boys. You know, I'll tell you what. This was on a forum the other day, and I guarantee you this guy's not watching the show, so I'm pretty safe to say this. But somebody went on a forum and said, "What are the best XLR wires you can buy?" And there were about 50 comments saying NLFX Platinum Series. And this guy actually goes, enough with the NLFX. I don't want to hear it anymore. I'm like, well, you asked. Like,
Yeah.
and he's like, well, you guys are all just paid endorsers. And I'm like, no, not a single person is a paid endorser. Not Hawaii, not anybody. We do not pay anybody. Sorry if you're looking for an endorsement, but you're not going to get it. I don't care if you're a Grammy winner. They pay for our cables too. We put all the energy and all the expense into making the best cable you can buy. So you can trust that these recommendations that are coming from people are heartfelt. It is because they have bought these cables and they have genuinely solved a problem. And it's unfortunate that we live in a world where reviews are bought and endorsements are paid for and integrity is for sale, but it isn't here. So first and foremost, thank you to everybody who's bought our cables. Thank you for supporting us. Thank you for supporting American engineered and American made cables. Second of all, thank you for the recommendations and the referrals. And if you are someone who thinks that these are paid endorsements, first of all, there isn't enough margin in cables to do that. But second of all, take the Pepsi challenge, so to speak. Buy one of our cables. And if it doesn't live up to the hype, I'll send you stamps to mail it back. You know, I don't want to turn this into an infomercial, but that really got a nerve with me. It really, really got under my skin, you know, that this guy thought all these people are just, shilling for our cables instead of making heartfelt recommendations for something that truly, truly is a better product. It's just science and it's just fact. We made a better product and we're damn proud of it. So it bothered me that people would question that integrity. And again, that's why I'm willing to put my money where my mouth is. If you get one of our cables and it doesn't live up to the hype, I'll take it back. Simple as that. Somebody else will buy it. It's no harm for me to take it back. You know. By the way, we also guarantee them forever. So if it ever fails you, I mean, we're sort of counting on, when the world ends, nobody's going to call us on that. That's kind of like, so forever isn't really forever, but we're counting on the fact that the cable will outlast you. That's a dark thought, isn't it?
And if you have questioned this, like, go back and watch the video of the parade, because we always bring that up because that was just amazing. All right, so let's move on a little bit.
Yeah. Sorry, that turned into kind of that really did bother me though. It really got under my skin. I'm like, come on, man, like. It wasn't that it didn't get under my skin because I didn't think that he didn't believe we made the best cable. It got under my skin because he was basically accusing all these people of being liars. Yeah. And some of these people are friends of mine, and that bothered me, anyway. But
all right, I got it. Well, it might not be a softball one, but we'll see.
Whatever.
X-Wing or TIE Fighter?
Oh man, I'll tell you what. I mean, somebody pointed out something the other day that absolutely blew my mind. And since we've already risked losing our PG-13 rating here, they were pointing out that it was X-Wings and Y-Wing fighters in a trench trying to, shoot into this thermal port. So, it's kind of like, hey, you ever think that maybe Lucas was thinking of those as XY chromosomes? And I was like, no, I don't think George Lucas was thinking that either. But anyway, now I can't stop thinking about it. I'm like, really? Was that a thing? Like, you got these XY chromosomes going into this shaft? I was like, I don't know. Anyway, that wasn't your question though. So I have a couple of X-Wings over here. Actually, one is a Lego X-Wing that my son gave me for Father's Day.
Very nice.
And another is one from episode 7 from my friend Alton. I don't think he minds if I say that was him. But the TIE Fighter's cool, man. I don't know. It's a tough choice. I think you can't have one without the other, right? You can't have the dark without the light. You got to have, each side's got to have their fighter.
Love how you won't pick. I love how you won't pick. It's awesome.
Because I think one is no good without the other. You get the twin ion engines.
I didn't say one was no good without the other. It's just, let me word it a little differently. If you had to fly one, which one would you want to fly?
Oh man, I feel like a TIE fighter would be just badass to fly. Uh, but on the other hand, I still can't pick because the X-wing you get an astromech droid with you. So
That's true.
I guess I'm gonna what I'm gonna pick the X-wing. I'm gonna go with the X-wing. I'm gonna make it.
And nothing the fact that TIE Fighter kind of defies some laws of physics, right? It's got two sides and it's got a ball in the middle, and there's nothing really like the TIE Fighter's got at least the X Fighters.
Well, they
I
both
can't
kind
even
of
sit on the
defy the
talk.
laws of physics because they don't have thrusters to maneuver in space, and they rely on our understanding of aerodynamics in an atmosphere, which doesn't apply in space. But another thing is the TIE stands for twin ion engine, and ion engines are a real thing. But
Hmm.
ejecting ions to propel you forward in space would move you at like mere miles per hour. It would not
Yeah.
be, fighter speed. So um, I don't work for JPL or anything. They could check my math on that. But anyway, that's my understanding is a true ion engine wouldn't work like that. But you know what? It's a movie, and it's a great movie, by the way. But
It is. It is. All right. Back to the audio type of
that was my
questions,
favorite
right?
question
So
so far.
we're looking to do a big upgrade on our shows for the fall homecoming season. All right. So I'll be honest, this was John's question here. So how is gear availability and how much lead time will I need to order for a September for first for a September 1st for sure delivery?
Well, you can't ever order too early. I mean, and that's, I know that cash flow is a thing and whatnot, but I just ordered some more 1-ton motors simply because they were in stock. I'm like, oh my gosh, these haven't been in stock in forever. Now they're in stock. I'm just going to order them now, you know? But supply has really caught up. And I think, particularly with loudspeakers and things, it's pretty good. Particularly with the bigger brands, it's really pretty stable. Wireless mics remain a challenge. We do have wireless mics in stock. We actually had a rep from Audio Technica fly in from Cleveland, and technically, I guess more like the Akron area. But anyway, they were like amazed at all the wireless we had in stock, and they said, "You have a serious leg up on your competition." And I said, "Gosh, it sure doesn't feel that way. We always feel like we need more. We're always anytime we let somebody down, it bothers us, but." Some things are better than other, I guess is the point, and I wouldn't delay, you know.
So if you've got if you've got the funds, put it in place now. But let's assume for a second somebody had to wait. I mean, obviously things can change. The
Yeah,
the
how can I
market is
predict
what
what's
it
going to happen in
is, right?
August, you know? I
But
mean,
if they were to say, assuming that things were the conditions that they are now, right? Nothing changed just for the negative there. Mid-July should be okay for most
I would say
things.
plenty good. Yeah,
Okay.
here's the deal. Me personally, I've learned a lot of hard lessons over 30 years. I always try to get my gear early, get it in hands, test it out. I cringe when somebody orders gear they're going to take out that weekend, you know, um, especially if it's critical. I get taking it out just to try it out, but if it has to work that weekend, that's a tough spot to be in. I just think there's a lot of ways that can go wrong. So I'd say mid-July would be plenty good. You could even probably get into August, but again, the earlier the better.
Okay. All right, there we go. All right, so in-ear monitors, right? A lot of people are using them not just obviously for themselves and what the main idea is for, like what they're used for, but we're using them for remote speakers, right? And
Mhm.
that's one of the things you set me up with. So
Yep.
I got a question for you, and I probably should have asked this before I went and bought this nice system, but is it really transmitting a full range signal to the speaker?
Well, I feel like that's a trick question, and here's why. Because when we say full range, is it truly transmitting 20 hertz to 20 kilohertz? Probably not. Does that matter? Definitely not. When we just had our audio and lighting symposium, was it last week or 2 weeks ago? Anyway, whatever it was, it's been a blur, I'll tell you. Uh, we had some people who couldn't hear above 12K. So, if it cuts off at 16K, I don't think that's a big deal. And if it cuts off at 25 hertz, I don't think that's a big deal. That bottom five, because, typically these are used for delay speakers, which often don't even include subwoofers. So your speaker probably cuts off at 50, you know? So is it truly a full bandwidth? I mean, it depends on what you define as a full bandwidth. I would argue that it's as full of bandwidth as any speaker you put it on.
Okay, and I think that's going to be your key piece right there, right? Like, because I think some people are worried that, if I were to run, if I could hook up an XLR to that speaker, I'm going to get everything that I need. But if I'm going to hook up the IEM, I'm going to like truncate the audio sound that I want to
Not
get,
meaningfully so.
frequencies. Okay.
Not meaningfully so. And let's think about what an in-ear monitor is for. It's for an in-ear monitor. So if I'm a musician, I want to hear the full bandwidth. I that's going to bother, particularly, if I'm a pro musician, I'm touring, and suddenly you start chopping off my frequencies and stuff. I'm not going to like that at all, you know. So that's a really big concern with IEMs. It's one of the reasons they're so good for a wireless speaker is they are very true to what the sound is, because that is their sole purpose, is the reliable wireless transmission of fullish sound,
So then when we're using them to hook up the speakers, are they transmitting a stereo sound? Because obviously, like, we kind of get that idea that that's what's happening when we're wearing them.
Hmm. They
We're getting a
can.
stereo
They
sound.
can also be
Okay.
switched to mono. Uh,
Okay.
each speaker is mono in its own right, or it's part of a stereo array, right? So we can say, I want to take a sum of both signals into this speaker. Okay, can do that. Or I can send only the left side to this speaker and the right side to this other speaker. There's a lot of ways you can use them, and that's just configurations in the menu.
Okay. And obviously, there's I would assume quite a few different ways that we could hook up that IEM to our speaker. What would be the recommended way of doing so? John says the best way. I don't like John's wording because I know that's
Yeah,
subjective.
there's some things
So
that are
what would be the
not.
recommended?
Yeah, I tend to like to use either like an aux bus, or a second main send. Sometimes, Booth works really well for this. It's important to note, though, that if you're using Booth, make sure that your mic announcements can be sent out the Booth, can be routed out the Booth, because otherwise anything you say on the microphone maybe doesn't go to those delay speakers. I think this is just like your diaper question, and it depends.
Well, actually, I wasn't talking about the transmitting end,
Oh,
because that would be the case. And I agree, like, there's a lot of different ways that you could do it. And I'm a big believer of using the booth. That's what
oh,
I
you let me
was
ramble all that time. You could have just said, "Hey,
because I don't
man,
want
you're
to
on the
interrupt,
wrong
because that
track."
because while that wasn't my question, it didn't mean it was a bad question. I'm a big believer in the booth, because then you have that complete control, whether you want a little bit more, a little bit less, et cetera. But no, on the receiving end, right? So you've got the pack, we got the belt pack or whatever, running from there to
Into the
is it the
speaker. We
XLR,
we
just and
Yeah, we
anything.
include cables with the we sell IEM systems as wireless speaker systems, and the only difference is we include the cables. So, in fact, I just had a guy last week who said he wanted an IEM system, and I quoted him a price. And then he said wireless speaker system, and then he said, I'll take it. And he said, wait, you quoted me this price. I said, yeah, that was for an IEM system, but now you want the cables, you know? So there's a little difference, because it is an IEM system plus,
Hmm.
and he was like, oh yeah, it makes sense. Yeah. But anyway, so, basically that's what a wireless speaker system is an IEM system plus the cables to go from the pack into the speaker, which we build right in our headquarters.
Yeah, and I will say I've been very appreciative. I've used them. It was one of the best ideas I had, of making that step up rather than trying to do some other funky thing with my sounds. So, well, listen, I've got a bunch more here, but I think we need to jump because I'm looking at the time. There's one more that I want to throw out, and so the question is, Memorial Day weekend is coming up this weekend. Typically, it's a lot of picnic times.
Hmm.
Assuming there's a picnic, what is Ben's perfect Memorial Day weekend menu include?
Well, this weekend is going to be different because my son graduates high school, and my wife has been eagerly prepping. I think there's going to be a lot of food of all kinds, and I don't really discriminate. I kind of eat it all. But I would say, I'm going to go with, for those of us that live in a state that has climates, right now it's beautiful here in Minnesota. It's in the high 70s, and the grass is green, and and that's very different than what it was just April 20th. There was 3 feet of snow outside just a month ago today. It's amazing, how fast things change around here. So I tend to my culinary desires tend to kind of move with the seasons, and I'm a big fan of the old, you know, potato salad, hot dog, hamburger, summer diet, right? And then in the winter it's different. I don't want to talk about the winter right now, so I'm not going to do it. I'm pretty over it. That was a month ago today. I'm over it. Winter's done for a few weeks. So yeah, but I don't. I mean, I kind of eat it all, man. Now, actually, something you and I were talking about just before the show started, because of COVID, I was able to go out and go camping with my kids for the first time in like 20 years. And I vowed that when the world reopened, I would keep that tradition. And that was on Memorial Day weekend. And of course, one of my kids ruined it for himself because I getting graduated. What was he thinking? But anyway, uh, there we go camping and we eat what we catch, for fish. We go out and fish and catch fish, and we bring a few things, pork and beans, right? You can't have camping without pork and beans, and eggs and that sort of thing. But otherwise, that would be my Memorial Day diet, would be fish.
All right.
Hopefully, if we catch something. If we don't,
Yeah, I was gonna say that's putting some big risk in. Of course, you got the pork and beans just in case, to tide you over, I guess. But yeah, it wouldn't be camping without some of those
it's
requires.
yeah, it's not healthy, the way we eat at camping. I have some pictures here I pulled up, because and this one is, from 2020. So let's see here. So there we got some fish cooking.
Okay.
Let's see. I'm gonna find some better ones here because you know what? I don't. Those who don't know, but I'm an Eagle Scout, and that was a long time ago. It feels like a different lifetime ago. But I make a pretty mean cobbler in the Dutch oven. So
Oh.
yeah. So let's take a look at this right here. So there we go. I made that, and
I got a question though. Why is it that it seems like the only place you ever hear about Dutch ovens is through scouting?
well, I mean, it is kind of a hard way to cook things. It is sort of
And
a
it and
lost
it's like a
art.
standard. Like every camporee, every outing that our council does, they have a competition for cooking in a Dutch oven. And it's like that's the only place you ever run into it, like ever. So
I got one more thing. I lied. I got two more things I'm going to show you here. So, when you have had a good time fishing, and you don't need to eat the other food you brought, you make terrible life choices. So this was breakfast one morning, and I think it was my nephew-in-law that made this. But I mean, this is pretty much just a really, really fast way to stop your heart.
yeah, yeah.
Uh,
That's
but yeah, and then my favorite picture, I think, has to be this one because to me, this summarizes what the camping is just all about for me.
okay.
You know,
Coffee on the fire.
yeah, it's just something about, waking up in the morning, and this campsite has no cell phone service. I'm sure that doesn't make me very popular with some of my customers, but we have to protect ourselves and recharge a little
Mhm.
bit. And just waking up and thinking about nothing, work related, just listening to nature and having a cup of coffee off that fire. You kind of hear the fire crackling and hear the percolator perking, and now I'm kind of missing this camping trip that I can't go on. So wonder if it's too late to flunk my son out. I don't know.
I think so. I think so.
Yeah,
If it's
he's
supposed to
made
be
it.
this
He's already
weekend,
passed the finish line. So
yeah. Yeah, he probably could have taken a 0 in that last couple tests and he still would have passed the finish line. So
here's the last picture. Here's my idea of fishing. So
there you go.
I'm not a very intense angler. I'm just enjoying the moment with nature. So
That's the best way to do it. That really is. And that's a beautiful picture. And you can just like you can just even tell like how peaceful the water is right there. And how clear. Like, I mean, even some of those lake waters, like you never know, but you can tell that's a
we are very
very
lucky where
pristine
we
area.
live. Yeah, within a 50-mile drive of where I live, there's over 100 lakes, and we're very fortunate here. In the wintertime, we don't think so, but this is that time of year when just when you can't take it anymore and you think, why do I live here? We're reminded why we live here. It's just in time. Nature's like just in time. They're like, And then you're enjoying the summer and everything is great. And you think, oh, this place is so beautiful. And then suddenly, bam, it snows and it's too late to leave. You're trapped for another year.
And what do you know? That's like 3 weeks after the first time. So
That's right. Summer's so short.
yeah, you save on your pool because there's no point in having one unless it's an ice rink.
Yeah,
Or
I
use out
don't.
of it
I
that
don't
way.
know. If you have a pool here, it better be indoors.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Well, sir, thank you very much. Coming up next is going to be the Tuesday night music show over at DJNTV. .com/chill. That's the place that you're going to want to go. Howie and the guys are going to be talking. Something music related. I don't know specifics on what it is tonight, but make sure you check that out. Be a part of that. And if for some reason you can't, tomorrow night is like the replays of both the Monday night show and then the Tuesday night show. So you get a chance to check them out on Wednesday in the replay if you didn't already. So just kind of be aware of that. Howie says cowboy coffee with an egg in it as a filter.
Yeah, no, you know what he's talking about?
I don't think I do.
You can pour coffee grounds directly into hot boiling water and then crack an egg in there, and the egg will basically capture all the grounds. It's not my cup of tea, pun intended,
Yeah.
but I just like the good old fashioned fire percolated. But Howie's 100% right. So yeah, you can do the cowboy coffee, but
I think at that point I would just be like, I as much as I wouldn't want to, I could do without coffee for a day or two.
no, it's
Like
actually
I
not
like
bad.
my
It's not. No, it's not what you're thinking. It's not. You know what? You and Howie live fairly close to each other. I mean, you guys get together and he can make it for you. Give it a try.
Howie DJX this year. We're having cowboy coffee. We'll figure
You
a
know
way to
what?
make
If
it happen.
picture it didn't happen, guys. I need to see this. Like picture, because I'm reasonably sure I'm not going to be at DJ Expo this year. I'm reasonably sure that I'm booked out to do some tour shows or something. But which makes me sad because I miss you guys. But picture it didn't happen. I got to see this. I got to see this cowboy.
There we go. We're not going to do that. We're not going to do our Tuesday night like thing at oh my gosh, Beret. Or no,
Right.
yeah, Beret. We're not going to be there. We're just going to go. We're going to find a place to have like a campfire and make cowboy coffee. That's what we'll
Or
do.
better yet, why don't you guys, you and Howie and anybody else who wants to come to Minnesota? Let's go together. We'll go.
There we go. There we go. All
I'm
right.
I'm not even kidding. Let's
I
do
know
it.
you're not. I know you're not. And one of these times I will take it up because I just feel like the need to travel and see you guys and see your part of beautiful Minnesota. I think it's absolutely gorgeous. The pictures that you've showed, not just those, but others that I've seen. So, um, I've got to make that happen sooner rather than later. That's just
My good friend Alan, who is a frequent watcher of the show and a frequent commentator during the show, he came during COVID, and I mean, we had a blast. I think it was. I love to be able to share that too. So there's a lot of great campsites around here, a lot of great lakes. We don't have to just go to that one, but there's plenty to choose from. The headwaters of the Mississippi River is right here. You can literally walk across the headwaters. So imagine that if you're somebody who lives down, St. Louis or New Orleans or somewhere further south on the Mississippi. Imagine being able to walk across the river and not get your feet wet, because I can.
there you go. Ben
So,
walks on water. That you heard it here first.
well, I walk on the rocks actually. Yeah. So far, I think only Jesus has accomplished that successfully, but I walk on the rocks. So
Fair
but
enough. Fair
yeah.
enough.
Anyway, listen. Anybody who's watching that wants to come visit, I mean, the invitation stands. So
There we go.
I just
There we
strongly
go.
recommend you reach out to me ahead of time. Don't tell
Yeah,
me,
let him
hey,
know. Don't just show up at his house. Don't stalk him. That probably would not
yeah,
be
that would be weird,
appropriate.
first of all. But second of
And
all, you might message me, say, hey, I'm in Bemidji. And I might say, I'm on a plane in Asia right now. So,
yeah,
like
very true. Very
you'll want
true.
to coordinate this a little bit with me.
Just a
I
little
keep a pretty busy schedule.
bit. Well, Ben, again, thank you very much for being a part of tonight. Obviously, this is Ask Ben Stowe, so we asked you a bunch of questions. So have yourself a great night, everybody. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.